The honor guard is practicing, getting ready for the event coming up. You guys sounded beautiful. Hey Glenn, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. You look great.
Thank you.
You're going to be the speaker, right?
Not today.
Oh, okay.
I did it last year.
Okay.
Somebody else is still riding your
Okay.
bikes? Yeah.
Woohoo!
I'm going there to meet my Father. I'm going there, no more to roam. I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just going home. I'm just going home. I'm just going home.
Woo! Beautiful.
Well, same house, 30-some years. You still around the corner?
You were only waiting for this moment to arise. Singing in the dead of dawn. Take these sunken eyes and learn to see. High on life. You were only waiting for this moment to be free. Into the light of the dark black night. Take these wings and fly, 'cause all your life you were only waiting for this moment to arise. Into the light of the dark black night. Sing loud. Take these wings and learn to fly, 'cause all your life you were only waiting for this moment to arise. You were only waiting for this moment to arise. You were only waiting for this moment to arise.
Thank you to all of you for joining us on this beautiful morning to remember the fallen. I'm grateful for this warm, sunny day to pay our respects and express our gratitude for those who made the ultimate sacrifice in service to our nation. My name is Meredith Reed. I'm an Air Force veteran, a wife of a 33-year Army veteran, and the post commander for the American Legion Post 14 here in Park City. We will begin this morning with the Summit County Sheriff's Honor Guard posting the colors and with the national anthem sung by the Troublemakers.
Right. Mark on. Up. Detail. Up. Order. Arms. Those colors. Present. Arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the hope of the brave?
Order. Arms. Detail. Fall in. Port. Arms.
10:05 a.m.
Right. Face. Forward. Arms.
I'd like to begin this morning with my appreciation for the individuals and organizations that have supported this service in the past and continue to help make this ceremony meaningful. My gratitude to those of you who have served our country, and to the community members who are here to honor that service. The troublemakers have been steadfast in their commitment and participating in this ceremony year after year. You don't even have to ask. They keep it on their calendar. Their a cappella harmonies are a beautiful element of this service. The troublemakers are performing their spring concert on Saturday, June 2nd at the community church, and the proceeds from that performance will benefit the People's Health Clinic. I invite you to attend. Chris Taylor, who will be performing taps at the end of our ceremony, is the band director for the award-winning Park City High School Band, and he just wrapped up his 29th year in that role. The marching band performed at the 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor in 2016 and the 75th anniversary of D-Day in Normandy in 2019. I am not just speaking as a mother of band kids when I say that our music program is incredible, and it is a direct result of Chris Taylor's leadership. Chris is very committed to honoring our country's service members, and we appreciate him playing this morning. Our Color Guard and the Mounted Patrol are from the Summit County Sheriff's Office, an organization that does everything to ensure our community's safety and is always ready to support the community with education, working with our students in our schools and our community organizations. Our sheriff, Frank Smith, always has a solution when I have a challenge. Whenever I call him, his first response is, "How can I help you?" And everyone in his organization takes that same approach. The Summit County Sheriff's Office has proudly supported this ceremony for years, and we are grateful for their time and contribution to our community. On Friday afternoon, members of the Park City Rotary Club, led by Joe Connolly, placed flags on all the veterans' graves here at the cemetery. Park City Rotary is taking over this aspect of Memorial Day commemoration from Rita Smith and her family, who have done that for decades. We're grateful for their commitment to honoring the memory of the veterans who are interred here. And also on Friday, the Young Men's Service League joined the Rotarians in placing a flower on each grave. On this National Day of Remembrance, we gather to honor the sacrifices of those who served principles greater than themselves. The history of this commemoration goes all the way back to the Civil War. Major John A. Logan was a Civil War veteran who deserves much of the credit for the establishment of Memorial Day as a national holiday. Originally called Decoration Day, Americans took time to decorate the graves of over 750,000 soldiers who gave their lives in the Civil War. Today's national holiday of Memorial Day honors all American service members who died in defense of our great nation. Following the Civil War, Logan was instrumental in the founding of the Grand Army of the Republic, a veterans group comprised of former Union Army soldiers, and served as their second elected national commander. In March of 1868, Logan issued General Order Number 11, which called for a National Day of Remembrance for Civil War dead. This order served as the basis for what later became the national holiday of Memorial Day. For our service this morning, we'll hear from our speaker, Mike McComb. Following Mike's remarks, we will have the riderless horse, courtesy of the Summit County Sheriff's Mounted Patrol, and the ceremony will conclude with the retiring of the colors, and Chris Taylor will play taps. The riderless horse, presented in funerals and parades, is a time-honored tradition made famous by the old guard serving at Arlington National Cemetery. Many Americans have seen a riderless horse in funerals for U.S. presidents. The riderless horse is called a caparison horse or a cap horse. The cap horse displays a saddle and boots backwards, signifying this warrior will never ride again. A fallen leader looking back on their troops for the last time. This morning, together, we remind the nation what this day truly represents by paying tribute and remembering the lives of those lost in the U.S. Armed Services and the immeasurable sacrifices made by their families. let us resolve to not let their sacrifice be in vain, but to celebrate their lives and memory, and to dedicate ourselves to serving the highest ideals of our country. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Mike McComb. Having grown up on the slopes of Park City, Mike McComb enlisted in the U.S. Navy in October of 1986, and by 1997 was promoted to the rank of Chief Petty Officer. His enlisted duty stations include both stateside and overseas as part of Operation Desert Storm and NATO operations in the former Yugoslavia. He was commissioned in 2000 and took part in Operation Enduring Freedom on board USS John F. Kennedy in 2002. As a leader in emergency management, law enforcement, security, and anti-terrorism, his most recent active duty assignment was at Naval Station Norfolk, where he led the daily operations of 400 military and civilian personnel in protecting the world's largest naval installation. At the end of 2016, completing a full active duty career with the U.S. Navy, Mike returned to Utah and after a nationwide search, became Park City Municipal Corporation's emergency manager. In this role, he's participated in multiple real-world incidents and emergency operations center activations in support of several international large-scale planned events, including the Sundance Film Festival, Tour of Utah, FIS Freestyle World Championships, and others. Mike holds a master's degree in business administration from the University of Utah, David Eccles School of Business, and a master's of arts from Norwich University. He received his designation as a certified emergency manager from the International Emergency Managers Association and a designation as Utah's certified emergency manager in 2019. He is a sworn and certified law enforcement
Thank you for that very kind introduction to intervene. What an honor it is to be here to speak to you at Utah Police 14's Memorial Day service. I'll attempt to do that invitation justice. No promises though. It's become increasingly. Can you all hear me in the back?
No.
No, you can't hear me. How about now? Now can you hear me? Okay, should I start over?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for the very kind invitation. What an honor it is to be that they make to serve the nation. And while such thanks may be a little misguided on today, Memorial Day, it's intended for the solemn remembrance of those lost and fallen, it's still refreshing to know that the well-intended sentiment is widespread and sincere. When people say to me, thank you for your service, I thank them for their support, and I usually follow it up with the statement that it was a privilege to serve. And for me, my small part absolutely was and is one of the greatest privileges I can imagine. What I mean by that is it's a privilege to be, in the words of Isaac Newton, standing on the shoulders of giants who have gone before us. It's a privilege to be living in an overall era of unprecedented peace and prosperity for our country, which is an anomaly for virtually any nation in world history. And while certainly not discounting the sacrifices made by our servicemen and women in any other major conflict, our nation over the past half century has seen the cumulative results largely from the foundations laid by our veterans returning from World War II. Both my grandfather and my wife's grandfather came ashore in Normandy. Oh, that's better. Came ashore in Normandy in 1944 and saw the war in Europe through to its conclusion. And they were hardly alone. The 12 million Americans who served literally around the globe during World War II represented almost 10% of the U.S. population at the time. And those individuals went on to serve in other capacities, bringing their work ethic, service, sense of duty and honor to new post-war assignments in boardrooms, in city halls, halls of Congress, the White House, Supreme Court, and multiple other distinguished callings which laid the foundation in terms of breadth, scope, and depth, sharpened by the realities of Cold War. Many of those individuals were shaped by their battlefield experiences. service with brothers in arms, and sense of duty to the missing and fallen. And of course, the service members weren't the only ones serving and sacrificing during that era. Programmed rotations in and out of theater outside of rest and recuperation were haphazard at best. Families said goodbye at the piers of both coasts, not knowing when or if they would see their servicemen and women return. The families went on to make sacrifices of their own, many working in factories or essential industries, buying war bonds, planting victory gardens, conserving war materials, and many received the Gold Star they neither Many received the Gold Star they neither wanted, needed, nor deserved. The shared sacrifices of that generation, which had just weathered the Great Depression, forged an unshakable bond and dedication to God, family, and country. This sense of selflessness and service carried through multiple decades, impacting generations to follow. And we and subsequent generations are privileged to benefit from the decades-long fruits of their labors in the post-war years. While I was on active duty, I was serving in Sicily on a joint U.S. and NATO base during the 70th anniversary of Operation Husky, the Allied invasion of Sicily from North Africa. That summer, I had the privilege of re-enlisting one of my crew at the Canadian War Cemetery in Ajira. And in preparation, I read up a little on the Canadians' part in Operation Husky. After several days of difficult and bitter fighting leading up to the assault to take the strategic mountaintop town, one of the units was tasked with assaulting the town from the southeast, vice the west, where the Germans had oriented their main defenses, given the much easier western terrain and approach. This assault meant a hand-over-hand climb up ropes laid on a 300-foot cliff under withering machine gun fire and dodging grenades rolled down the mountainside towards the assaulting force. They did this in the Sicilian summertime heat and dust, with daytime temperatures soaring well above 90 degrees in late July while carrying combat gear. Anyone who's served in the Middle East knows a little something about those conditions. But imagine doing it wearing canvas, steel, cotton, and leather gear instead of today's MOLLE gear and technical fabrics. It's truly a different generation. The battle for Ajira mirrored the extreme conditions that U.S. and Allied troops faced in multiple battles during that global upheaval. The 485 fallen soldiers now interred at that cemetery also mirrored the sacrifices made by the best of our country's youth. But the steep losses at Ajira were absolutely dwarfed by the larger, costlier engagements that were all too common throughout the larger war, ultimately taking more than 400,000 young American men and women who fought, sweat, cried, and bled and died around the world in places like Pearl Harbor, Normandy, Guam, Saipan, the Libyan Desert, Bazzini, Monte Cassino, Nijmegen, the Ardennes, the North Atlantic, the South Pacific, and the skies above, and so many other places around the world. Those who went before them in World War I, the Civil War, the War of 1812, the Revolutionary War, and other major engagements, those who have since followed them in Korea, Vietnam, Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, Yemen, and a host of other far-flung locations knew deep down that their individual actions by themselves would not impact world events, but by working with a host of others toward a common goal, they might just sway the decision through determination and shared sacrifice. And maybe that we, the future generations to follow them, might know freedom as a result. In the spring of 2013, the U.S.-based CO in Sicily was contacted by the German military triathlon team with a request to use the base to stage and train their athletes that summer. As the unofficial lead of a group of American triathletes, since we were familiar with the area and the types of training grounds the Germans were likely seeking, I reached out to their team leader to offer support in coordinating runs, rides, swims, and races. The first weekend of their 10-day visit to Sicily, a group of 50 or so German, Italian, and American military athletes headed out for a large group ride. and our route took us over some of the very same battlegrounds that our grandfathers literally fought each other over several decades prior. As we were riding up a classic Sicilian mountaintop road, I was struck by the vision of our grandfathers celebrating this amazing development. And maybe it was the heat or an intense bout of dehydration, but I could almost envision them pumping their fists in the air and pointing to us excitedly explaining that's what it was for. An author that I recently read wrote that a society that rejects the idea of heroism will produce fewer and fewer heroes, and at the same time turn into the kind of place that most needs them. This is rephrasing the idea that hard times create hard men and women, who then go on to create good times. And you likely know how the rest of that quote goes, and if you don't, come see me afterwards. In the immortal words of Ronald Reagan, freedom is a fragile thing, and it's never more than one generation away from extinction. It's not ours by way of inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation, for it comes only once to a people. And those in world history who have known freedom and then lost it have never known it again. So it's to the giants who have gone before us that I would say that it was an absolute privilege and honor to serve and carry on the ideals that they fought and bled for. The idea that this civilization matters, that freedom matters, and I would add that they were no less than heroes in finding a way to fight for it, and in doing so, serving a cause greater than themselves. Their actions largely teach us to be better people and better citizens, and that we can stand up to evil no matter the odds. It's a debt we cannot hope to repay. A full year isn't enough to honor the sacrifice, nor a month, let alone a mere day once a year. But a lifetime of gratefully honoring their sacrifices by our own actions to defend our God-given liberties would be a good start. My parting thought is of John 15:13, which seems especially appropriate on this day in which we memorialize our fallen. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. And to borrow from the inestimable Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, love conquers all evil. Thank you, and may God continue to bless those who have gone before us, as well as our men and women currently in uniform, their families, our leaders, and may God bless America. So folks, now Summit County Sheriff is going to lead the riderless horse through on this path. If he could clear a space for them. And we'll retire the colors.
Clear. Right. Mark. Turn. Mark. Detail. Halt. Order. Arms. Preset. Arms. Order! Arms! Retrieve colors! Detail, fall in! Forward, arms! About face! Forward, march!
This concludes our ceremony. Again, thank you all for coming today.